Alrighty, here we are, another set of notes, Unit 3. This is a pretty start getting into the nitty-gritty, a little bit of biology now. A few, what we talked about before, ecosystem bio, and uh, sort of biology, a little bit of ecology, but for the most part, well, now we're going to get into cellular respiration, the way that we convert food, or not just we, but any organism that um, gets a sugar, and the plants do it through the process of photosynthesis. They get their sugars. We have to eat plants or eat things that eat plants in order to get our sugar molecules to convert that into our chemical energy or usable energy for our body. So anyway, nutrients. So this is how we're going to start the unit, just talking a little bit on the overview of eating, the macro aspect of it before we get into the micro aspect of it. But how is energy stored in food? So the first definition that we need to know is metabolism, and we hear that term when we're talking about, you know, the way that we process or the rate that we process foods. Some people have, let's say, a higher metabolism than others. So, in a nutshell, the metabolism is the chemical processes and the that occur during life to help maintain living organism live, right? So, when we think about metabolism, it's the actual production or the use and or use of energy, right? And how do we, when we talk about production of energy, we're talking about converting that energy to a stored energy into something that we can use for our cellular processes. So usually we start with photosynthesis and then we back it up with cellular respiration. This year we're going to go a little bit backwards, and we're going to start with cellular respiration, and then talk about photosynthesis later, which it's that has been done both ways. Just depending on the teacher, and there's really no correct or incorrect way to process order in which to cover these two processes. So photosynthesis, I think you're familiar with plants, that they form, they take the solar energy into form it into a chemical energy. And then cellular respiration is that taking that stored chemical energy and converting it into a usable energy that that our body can use. So, we talk about glucose or a sugar, a simple sugar. That's the primary source of, that process of cellular respiration. All right. So, where is energy stored? I may have talked about this before, but it's in the chemical bonds of molecules, right? So, when we talk about things that have more energy, um, we talk about how many bonds of molecules do they have, right? That determines how much energy a chemical has or a molecule has, because when the bonds break, that releases their energies. Therefore, the more bonds, the more stored energy they contain. And it's not really evident in a sense of these pictures, but the fat molecules have a lot more energy stored than a protein or a carbohydrate. And we'll talk about that more, right? So, fat, you can see all the bonds that they have compared to a carbohydrate. This is a carbohydrate. This is a fat molecule and a protein molecule. So, in nutrition um, circles, I guess you could talk about, even in biology, we have those macronutrients. And when we talk about macronutrients, we talk about those big three that we always hear about: proteins, lipids, or fats, and carbohydrates. And then the micronutrients are, in a sense, we're going to call supplemental. So for instance, vitamins, and you hear about vitamin D, the ability to to convert that um, calcium into bone strength. Vitamin C and all these different types of K and E and all these different vitamins and minerals. And when we talk about minerals, we're talking about important inorganic salts, such as, let's say, a calcium and sodium and, phosphate and sulfur. And, those may sound dangerous, but we do need those, right? We talk about, things that are important for living are those different types of minerals. All right. So we're going to talk about the macronutrients. We talk a little bit about the micronutrients, but mostly the macronutrients. So carbohydrates, they can be divided into two categories, simple and complex. And I think simple sugars, easy to break down, easy to store. It's fast energy, but if we think about like a sugar rush, it's easily consumed, easily used, and easily released, and it doesn't last very long, right? That's sort of when you're the first energy that we use. And then we have the complex, again, harder to break down in a sense because it's more complex, it's more tied up, like the pastas and the root vegetables and breads, and so they have more of a complex carbohydrates. We ultimately will store it as fats, right? That carbohydrate can be converted, and it can go vice versa, whereas plants store it as starch, right? So you're talking about long-term storage. So lipids or fats, right? Fats, vegetable oils, fish oils. These are just stored energy, right? And you get my age and, our metabolism decreases and we hold on to this a little bit. We like to store things for long-term energy, right? So I could probably live a long time without food in a sense because I have a lot of extra, more than I should probably at this point in my life. But, we like to store it for long-term energy. And then the proteins, these are for the building blocks, right? So, we'll talk about protein synthesis and amino acids and hormones and, connective tissue and all these proteins that we have in our body that we like to we build things with, right? So, meat, fish, cheese, tofu, beans, so on and so forth. How does the body unit use it? Longer lasting energy, although we don't like to use protein as energy, that would be our last resort. And not only a component of cells, but of most everything, muscles, like I said, connective tissue, chemical signals, hormones, things like that are all proteins. And, our body needs that for more construction rather than storage of energy. All right, so that's the end of the notes, as not very long. Just remember to interact with them, and you guys have been doing great with that, writing your Cornell notes, highlighting main ideas, circling vocab words, and we shall see you on Tuesday and Wednesday.